Thank you and welcome. Good morning, everyone. So, the subject before us is psychology of happiness. Uh, Frequently we imagine that happiness is a state for us to attain or to reach, to achieve. But actually, happiness is our natural state. So, when we are unhappy, then we are becoming alien to our own true nature. I shall begin just by giving a definition from one of the Ayurvedic texts. It's called Susruta Samhita. There is a statement by Susrutacharya, who was one of the most eminent of the Ayurvedic Acharya's teachers. He says, Samadosha samatnishcha samadhatu manakriyaha prasannatmendriya manaha sustha iti abhidhiyati. So here is a definition of who is a happy person and who is a mentally healthy person. If physically, mentally, intellectually, who is the healthy person. And the definition of mental health or healthy mindedness is found here. What it says is, when the functions of different constituents of our body, when different elements of our body, when in the psychological elements of the body are functioning in perfect equilibrium and balance, then we are said to be in a state of perfect mental health. So prasanna actually means a natural, spontaneous state of being in perfect bliss and happiness. Happiness doesn't mean just satisfaction or enjoyment. A state of mental health that actually goes beyond pain and pleasure, beyond happiness and unhappiness equations. Such a person is called a sustha. Now, the first condition to attain this state of perfect mental health is that our mind should be our friend. We should be in friendly terms with our own mind. That's why prasanna atma indriya manaha. And we should be in friendly terms with our own body. We should be in friendly terms with our own inner essence. When we are in perfect harmony with nature, when we are in perfect harmony with our own nature and external nature, then we will be in a state of perfect mental and psychological health. This actually corresponds to the inherent universal harmony expounded in the ancient Vedic literature, in the Rig Veda, called rhythm. Rhythm actually means a state of perfect harmony, interrelatedness, equilibrium, a natural state of affairs. Now, when I spoke all these, you may be wondering what this has to do with our present condition. We are now living in a very difficult situation, complete isolation, lockdown, and then emotional stress, financial stress, psychological stress, intellectual stress, physical stress. And for many people, maybe not for you, for many other people, it is a collapse of the so-called American dreams. The so-called success stories are coming to an end. They wonder when the walls are closing around us. So why should we talk about this ideal state of mental health? What it means is, because there is a problem, it doesn't mean that we have to be necessarily unhappy. There is a way of being in a state of perfect harmony with our own mind, even if the external situations are not very conducive to that state of happiness. So we can turn our mind into our best friend. We can turn our own intellect into our best friend. Now the point is, if our mind is not our best friend, mind will be our worst enemy. Mind doesn't take a neutral position. For that, we should first of all spend our time and divert our energies into some creative channels. Spend our physical energy, mental energy, intellectual energy, and divert them into some creative, constructive channels that will help us to cope with the present problems. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this present scenario creates a lot of mental block, a lot of negativity, a lot of inner conflicts. We cannot help it because that's part of the modern era. But it doesn't mean that we have to be necessarily unhappy, because there is a way for us to turn our mind into our best friend. Now, when does our own mind become our friend? That's the only time when we become really happy. Our mind becomes our best friend when we feed our mind with good food. Just as the physical body falls sick and maybe it can degenerate, so also mind also can fall sick if we do not feed our mind with good food. So what is the good food for the mind? Devotional exercises, even reading our classics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, stories from ancient traditions. India is enormously lucky in possessing the wealthiest and the most extensive spiritual literature compared to any other civilization. So why should we let our mind wander about and spend its time worrying about things for which we have no solution? So mind should be fed with good food, good ideas, good samskaras, and then mind slowly become our best friend. And when mind becomes our best friend, you find the first sign that mind is becoming our friend is the mind is slowly becoming friendly with us. It becomes happy. So even the external even when the external conditions are not very conducive, not very pleasant, still mind can be kept in a state of perfect health by feeding the mind with good food. Read Tulsidasi Ramcharitamanas, read the stories of Mahabharata, Ramayana, read the stories of the great saints and sages and Mahatmas of ancient times in any tradition, not only Hindu tradition. In fact, many of the world religions are very rich, but Hinduism is so enormously, unimaginably rich in spiritual literature. And many people coming and settling down in foreign countries frequently wait too long till they get some hard knocks to turn their eyes to the richness of their own culture. So I can give one, I can try to explain this in the light of one very interesting narrative from Bhagavata Purana, which is one of the most philosophical devotional classic in world literature. You know, the author of Bhagavata Purana was Vyasa. Now, Vyasa was the most celebrated sage of his times. He was the greatest philosopher, and he was also the greatest author. You may have read that Vyasa was the one who classified the Vedas into 4 groups: Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. He is the author of the old Mahapuranas and Upapurana, total 36 extensive classics. And he is the one who wrote Mahabharata, from which Bhagavad Gita has come. Now, such a great man was one day depressed, completely depressed. This is how Bhagavad Purana came to be written. So Vyasa was facing a problem that many of our friends are facing in this lockdown scenario. And it happened thousands of years back. Now, we should remember, this Vyasa was one day sitting on the banks of river Saraswati, and he was totally depressed. So another sage happens to come there. So that his name is Narada. Now, the Narada, the great sage, asked Vyasa, what's the matter with you? Why are you so unhappy? Why are you so depressed? Then Vyasa told him, I do not know. Then Narada replied, but I know why you are depressed. You have written all the great books in the world, like Mahabharata and so on. But you have not done anything really constructive and useful for the spiritual benefit of humanity. Now, Vyasa's story is narrated in so many literatures, not only Indian writings, but also even Western writings, as a classic example of how even the most accomplished person can still be facing an unfriendly mind when mind becomes our own enemy. So, when Narada found this problem, he told Vyasa, you should do something of which later on you can remember with a sense of contentment, with a sense of satisfaction, and with a sense of blessedness. Suppose we do something which gives us a feeling of, well, I have done something very good. You'll find our mind becomes very friendly. Even if you suppose somebody is standing in the street corner, maybe asking for some help, if you help that person, nobody knows that you helped that person. Still, when you do something noble and good to others, that physical act of helping another person will create a spiritual energy, psychological energy that will give us a lot of contentment. So, Vyasa wrote a great devotional classic which became Bhagavata Purana, which became the most celebrated devotional philosophical classic in Hindu tradition. And when he finally wrote last word, Satyam Param Dhimahi, I meditate upon the supreme truth. That's the last word of the Bhagavata Purana. When he wrote the last word, he became happy. Now, how does it happen? Frequently, when we are facing a problem, we often face a kind of mental vacuum, a mental block. It's a terrible thing. Loneliness is the curse of old age, and loneliness is the enemy of our mind. So, how to keep our time and energy engaged in some creative, constructive manner? Read some great books and feed our mind with some good food, and then you will understand there is a far greater way of becoming successful. Frequently, we expect happiness all the time because we imagine there can be a situation when we can be always happy. Happiness and unhappiness, pain and pleasure come and go. They don't remain steady all the time. If you look at the history of the world, there was not a single person who was always happy. We are happy today, we become unhappy tomorrow. So happiness and unhappiness in worldly life, empirical life, comes and goes. Stock markets collapse, they go up and they come down. So also we lose our job and again we get another job. There will be ups and downs. There will be setbacks and success in life. But frequently when we complain about unhappiness, there is a psychological reason for it. We anticipate that there can be a situation when happiness can be a continuous, unbroken experience. It never happens. No, so the whole humanity has not produced one single person who was always happy in a very secular sense. So in order to really enjoy happiness, you have to go beyond happiness and unhappiness. Happiness in the worldly sense is only a temporary absence of unhappiness. Temporary absence of unhappiness. So profit is only a temporary absence of loss, and the vice versa also is true. Unhappiness is only a temporary absence of happiness. So once we understand the transient nature, the momentary nature, the changeability of all these experiences, then we will be able to seek happiness beyond empirical happiness, beyond happiness as we understand at the empirical level. That's called, in the Yoga Sutra, it's called Santosha. It is one of the niyamas. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Shauja, Santosha, Tapaswadhyaya, Isapnidhana. This Santosha, contentment, goes beyond happiness and happiness equations in the ordinary sense. It is not happiness in the worldly sense, and it is certainly not unhappiness, but it goes beyond both happiness and unhappiness. It is a state of mind where you will be able to look upon happiness and unhappiness with the same equilibrium of mind. When we will be able to look upon pain and pleasure with the same equanimity of mind, that is the only way for us to keep our mind in a state of perfect health. And that is the real state of happiness. So we should look beyond happiness as we understand in the worldly sense. Now in Vedanta and Yoga Sutra, there are certain terms used which I can explain to you. One is Kritakrityada, that is Kritarthada in Vedic tradition, and it is called Chitta Prasada in the Yoga tradition. What is Chitta Prasada? When our mind is naturally in a state of perfect bliss, perfect equilibrium, perfect balance, where it can confront problems, but it will be shattered by problems. There will be problems in the world. There will be different kinds of problems. In fact, this coronavirus, the COVID-19, it is some kind of a situation where stress and tension have become so global and so universal. Globalization of stress and tension. That is nothing but, that is a short definition for the present situation. But then this also is part of the changing scenario. This is not going to last till eternity. Just as a happy situation is not everlasting, so also an unhappy situation also is not everlasting. Once we remind ourselves of the changeability of unhappy situations, then we will be able to confront this problem, and just with a philosophical smile, we will be able to take it in our stride. This state of perfect mental equilibrium is called Chitta Prasada in the Yoga tradition. When the Chittam or mental system is naturally, inherently, spontaneously happy and contented, such a person will be able to face the most terrible problems in the world and still continue performing his duties and responsibilities, his Swadharma. Now, it's not that we run away from problems. We cannot. We cannot be blind to the reality of problems. We cannot be blind to the tragedies happening in front of us. No, we cannot. That problem is there. We'll be facing them, but while facing them, we should not get mentally shattered. For that, we have to redefine our purpose of life or goal of life. So, the purpose of human life is not always to remain in a state of empirical worldly happiness. For the simple reason, it is not going to happen. The richest man in the world is not the happiest. The most powerful man in the world is not the happiest. The most successful man in the world is not the happiest. Because success itself has to be defined in new terms in modern times. So you find the most successful person, so-called successful person, so to speak, a big CEO, a man with trillions of dollars in the bank, with a powerful head of a powerful big company, they are not necessarily happiest. So the richest man will have to take 4 or 5 pills every day to get 4 hours sleep. So do you think his life is very successful? What kind of success it is? When you have all the money in the bank and you cannot make any use of it. You cannot get peace of mind enough to get 4 hours of sleep. So we have to redefine success. So success comes when we look beyond the ordinary meaning of success as we use in our everyday life. So success in the empirical sense, attainment in the empirical sense, gain and profit in empirical worldly sense is not enough. So we have to reach a point where our mind is able to look upon success and failure with the same level of equanimity of mind. Now, that is the only way for us to confront the problems in modern times. So, I shall give a few more examples from this. The main problem in modern times is we often wait till the last moment before we turn to spiritual ideals. That's the main problem in modern times. Frequently, we imagine that spiritual life is one thing, worldly life something totally different. So you go to a temple maybe in the morning, or you meditate or pray in the morning for 2-3 hours, that is spirituality. And the rest of our lifetime is just worldly life. It cannot be. We should be able to spiritualize the secular. Even the so-called secular activities should be performed with a spiritual perspective. And Vedanta gives a very wonderful example for this. There is an ideal in the Bhagavad Gita. It comes in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It begins like this: Imam vivasude yogam proktavan ahamam vayam vivaswan manave praka manhu ikshakave abravit evam parampara praptam imam rajasyo vidhu sakalena iha mahada yogo nashta parantama. This is an ancient Sanskrit verse. I shall explain. So even if you don't know Sanskrit, you won't be missing anything. It actually outlines a tradition of the great successful men of ancient times in India. Such persons were called Rajarshis. There are two terms here combined into a single word. Rajarshi, a king and a sage. Now how can a king and sage be the same person? In ancient times, a king was a very powerful person. He was very rich, very successful, more like modern CEOs. He had to rule a big kingdom, had to manage enormous resources. But at the same time, he had the wisdom of a sage. Is it possible for us to combine spirituality and secular values in our life? Is it possible for us to bring spirituality into our everyday micro moment, into every word we speak, every experience we have? Now, I shall try to explain this word Rajarshi. Once it is clear, the problem will be solved. Somebody who is a king and also a sage. Now, I will quote this Sanskrit statement, because in our Sanskrit tradition, which I am a traditionally Sanskritist, it's not proper to explain this without quoting the great statements of the great sages of the past. So a great commentator, Shankarananda Saraswati, explains this: Rajatvam Aishwarya Sambhati Rishitvam Tasyaka Sukshmartha Darsana Kshamatvam. I should explain this. Being a king signifies enormous wealth, power, success. You may be the CEO of a big company in modern times, and with extensive influence, a lot of power, a lot of wealth. But you are also a spiritual person. How do we bring spirituality into the life of a wealthy person? To understand the limitation of wealth. So, if a king, if a successful CEO also understands that there is something beyond this success, there is something beyond worldly success and worldly attainments, then he becomes a rishi, he becomes a philosopher. This was the original of Plato's idea of philosopher, king in the Republic, the ancient classic of Western tradition. So who was a philosopher king according to Plato? He was a philosopher because he could always keep in his mind while obtaining lot of wealth, while controlling big corporations, while enjoying a luxurious life, he also doesn't forget the fact that this wealth will one day disappear. This physical health, this bodily health will one day disappear. We have to remember that very well. Frequently, we want to forget the unpleasant. We are not willing to face the unpleasant with the philosopher's attitude. So, a great king who is also a great philosopher, he is willing to face the unpleasant with a philosopher's equilibrium of mind. Such a person was called Rajarshi. So in modern times, what we need is to redefine, restructure our concept of success in life. Success should not be measured in terms of the amount of money we put in the bank. If that's how we define success, we have no peace in a situation like coronavirus, because suddenly we are afraid stock markets are collapsing, money is job is lost, immediately our mind collapses. Why? Because in our mind we define success in terms of the money we have in the bank, in terms of the position we hold in the company, in terms of the success we have in our everyday life. It's our problem. It's our fault. So we have to take life in its complete dimension. For that, we have to redefine success. So success means the ability to look at success and failure with the same equanimity of mind, equilibrium. Then we will not be shattered by a colossus tragedy like the coronavirus or lockdown that we are facing today. Otherwise, anxiety, tension, stress, loneliness, mind becoming totally blank, and also enormous problems that naturally come in its train. Diabetics may go up, hypertension may aggravate, and physical conditions may degenerate because of worry, because of our inability to look at the unpleasant experiences with a philosopher's attitude. So this great ideal of Rajarshi from ancient Vedic tradition is actually presents a new paradigm of life. That means going beyond the empirical definitions of success and happiness. Now, for that, Vedanta puts forward another idea. It is called Swadharma and it is called Karma Yoga. Both are interrelated. If we can look upon our work, including the work of remaining without work in your home, it's also a work. Work doesn't mean physical activity. Work can be extended. Meaning of work can be extended to any kind of function of the body and mind and intellect or even ideas. So, whatever we do, that should be done with full attention, but without worrying too much about these results. I know I am asking for too much, but this is the only solution. If we always define our success in terms of material benefits, then we will not be happy when we are facing a problem. The slightest problem in worldly life can be a great dilemma. If we always define everything in terms of its immediate tangible benefit, that's called utilitarian philosophy. So if we cannot do anything without worrying about its practical, pragmatic, utilitarian benefit, whatever benefits bring, then we won't be happy anytime. So normally in modern times, when we do something, we want its result. We cannot do anything without expecting its immediate result. And the result should be always a pleasant one. And the result should make us always happy. So the mind always should be in a state of happy and well. Now, every action doesn't always bring expected results. There are many actions that don't bring expected results. And Karma Yoga tells us that we should do everything with perfect attention to details, with all enthusiasm and application, concentration and efficiency, at the same time, without being slavishly obsessed to the result. So this slavish obsession to its immediate practical benefit is what really makes our mind unhappy. So this slavish obsession will make our mind always unhappy, and you won't be able to enjoy life as a whole, because we can never be sure that every action produces its expected result, and every situation will be always a pleasant one. No, there are unpleasant situations. So that also we should be able to face with a smile. So as I want to repeat again what I said at the very beginning. In this scenario, we are lonely frequently. Many aged people living in lockdown scenarios are very lonely. And mental vacuum is a terrible problem. Suddenly mind becomes stressful. When we are always engaged physically and intellectually in our routine work, frequently mind is not stressed, because our sense organs take a lot of mental stress away. But when we are not engaged in our routine activities and obligations, the mind faces a vacuum. At that time, stress, often worries about unnecessary matters, unnecessary worries and unnecessary situations suddenly will bother our mind. In such a situation, we should divert our mind into some creative channels while trying to solve the problem at hand, while observing social distance. Maybe whatever we are expected to do in a lockdown scenario, we should also, in our own private mental world, we should build up a spiritual capital, intellectual capital. If those who are musicians can try to practice music. Those who are interested in writing can turn to writing. And those who are interested in reading can read wonderful books. One of the problems in modern times is that we have totally neglected the humanities. As for Indians, I am reminded of a professor in Berkeley University. He is a friend of mine. We have a lot of academic programs in many universities. Once he told me, he was a professor at the university. So these Indian youngsters working hard to get admission into Stanford or UC Berkeley or Harvard will come here. And when many of the American professors who have a lot of interest in yoga and Vedanta, when they put questions to the Indian youngsters, have you read a book on yoga? No. Have you read a book on Indian history? No. Do you know anything about Vedas? No. And Americans had no respect for you. Cultured, educated Americans will respect you if you have some knowledge of your own ancient culture. If you have some understanding of the glory of your own tradition. There are many cultured, highly educated, very refined Americans who frequently tell me, "Oh, Swamiji, we often find in our universities, whenever we meet these Indian youngsters, we ask them, have you read Ramayana or Mahabharata? Have you read Bhagavad Gita once? No." So this is a time for us to go back to those ancient spiritual classics, which represent our best spiritual wealth. So this time you utilize for reading Bhagavad Gita. Those who can read Hindi or interested in reading can read Ramcharitamanas, the original Tulsidas' book. They can read different books. You can read Vivekananda's complete works. You can read Shankaracharya's life. See, the world Wherever you go in the world, among the most cultured, educated circles, you find people who spend a lot of time studying ancient Indian philosophical, spiritual classics in translations. Think of a man like Max Muller, Holbrook, Winternitz, MacDonald, and quite a few. There are many. I don't want to give the whole list. Keith, many European Indologists. And even the Berkeley University, there was one great Vedic scholar, Fritz Stahl, who spent decades studying Indian Vedas and wrote extensive books, the Altar File. So these are the occasions for us to go back to our own traditional wealth. So this time can be a blessing. So lockdown can be turned into a great blessing, a great happy occasion. So we can enrich our mind with healthy organic food for the mind. What is the organic food for the mind? The teachings of the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata. This constitute the organic healthy food for the mind. We should not be just contented with eating only physically healthy food, organic food. We should also give our mind organic spiritual food, intellectual food. So this lockdown situation can indirectly become a cause of a new spiritual paradigm in our own life. Thank you. Namaskar. Now you will have interaction. Most welcome.
So anybody want to ask any question, either you can, or you can ask and then we can unmute you. Raise your palm and then moderators can unmute you.
Please.
We'll take the first question from Gita ji.
Most welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, Swami. Sir, I am a teacher. Throughout in my life, I have taught so many children. And I am very, very happy that you have set my own mind that children, our children, this generation, should be given our own Indian tradition that is so healthy, so rich, I can say. But only thing that we have to teach them we have to inspire them. We have to give them this tradition. Same manner, automatically they should attract towards this tradition. That's really, I'm very happy that they must read our own.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Just as we put pressure on them to do very well in their schools, so we should also remind them that there is something very wonderful in your own tradition. You have to learn the wonderful things from America. American egalitarianism, American punctuality, efficiency, innovation. All these are the leadership skills, organizational genius. These are the great gifts that America can offer to the rest of the world. Similarly, while imbibing these positive values of modern American life, you should also try to imbibe the positive values of your own tradition. Then you will become more meaningful. You will be respected all the more by a nation which is built upon self-respect. We should have something that we can be proud of. Otherwise, nobody will bother to respect you. So, a synthesis of the best elements of Western tradition, American values, and the great spiritual values of our own heritage. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Shobhana ji, go ahead.
Yeah, I have 3 grandchildren, and I have to ask you how it is easier way for them to learn this, because all these Sanskrit words and names, they are very difficult for them. So how can you teach them, or they can learn on themselves easier way? Because it's very difficult even for us to understand.
speech was very easy to understand, but some of the things I don't understand. So, how can you teach children easier way so they can understand our culture and our so
there are any number of books written in simple, plain English by Western authors and also Indian authors, written in English language, more plain English, simple English, expounding the teachings of the Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata. There are many books, and there are, of course, you should begin at an early age. That's very important. So I know very well that parents persuade their children to do very well in examinations. While putting pressure on them, we should also tell them, see, you can be better beneficiaries of your success, academic success, if you imbibe some of these values. So that's one way of, and one way of teaching them. And there are many books available. Even Vedanta Society in the Ramakrishna Mission Ashramas in Madras and Calcutta, they have brought out number of small books. Some of the books will be can be easily intelligible even to children as young as 6 or 7 years old. And there are also books meant for more senior students.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
And next question, please.
Yes, Partha Sarkar.
One second. Let me get to you, sir. Partha Sarkar, sir, can you please tell me what is your name?
Partha Sarkar, S-I-R-C-A-R.
No, the name of the computer.
Computer, I don't know the name. Dell computer.
Okay, so I got you. Please go ahead.
Yes. Can you put my name in and the face in there? So
yes, we can see you. We can see you. Please
Yeah,
go ahead.
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Swamiji knows me anyway. Swamiji, my question is the two ladies before me had very interesting questions, but they were sort of related to how to impart our ancient knowledge or wisdom to our youngsters. I have a slightly different take, and too many friends don't disagree with me and don't want to admit it. We ourselves know and have been exposed to or know so little of our ancient cultures, traditions, beyond small stories of Ramayana. I don't think we are qualified, and therefore we do not have the inclination of appreciating and therefore imparting them to our children. That is my difficulty. It's only after a rather late age and starting to go to Vedanta Society, and you have seen me there, that we start thinking that. But the bigger obstacle or difficulty is that we don't know ourselves, and part of the thing is we should try to educate ourselves also first, along with trying to do the best. If you don't know yourself, or if you are not convinced enough yourself that they're worthy, you cannot, in good conscience, impart it to whoever you want to impart it to. That's my impression. Can you comment on that?
Well, to begin with, may I tell you, if you don't mind, I've seen you many times in Vedanta Society asking questions and discussing so many times. I fully believe you can easily teach children fundamentals of Indian philosophy. Very often when we are not willing to do, we want to say we have to learn first. We have to study a lot. But some of the senior devotees like you, students of Vedanta like you, who have been attending classes for several years, can very easily read out stories containing spiritual values to the young kids. You need not be a scholar, you need not be a spiritually enlightened person to do that. This itself is a very wonderful work. You are paying back the indebtedness to the great sages of ancient times when you transmit that wisdom to the new generation. That itself is a great work, a noble work. And no noble work will go unrewarded. It will produce its own benefit in our mind. We are doing something noble. That itself is a great thing.
Yes, Swamiji. Unfortunately, by the time I got into it, my children are way into adulthood. And it's not the time. And they wouldn't listen to it. They have their own views, right or wrong.
Then instead of teaching your children, you teach children in the neighborhood who are still young enough to listen to you. They will understand their father is teaching something very wonderful to the friends in the neighborhood. That will persuade them to learn from you later. Okay? Thank you. Wonderful question. Thank you.
Thank you. The next, I would like to call Sunita ji. Please go ahead.
Namaskar, Swamiji. My happy tears are rolling. I don't know how to thank you enough. The speech was so beautiful, and it helps me a lot. Thank you. And as children, Partha Sarkarji was saying, absolutely true. My children, it is too late. They've grown up, and that's where I realized I was searching for that peace. So then I got from my Guruji, Chinajia. Now I'm teaching from past 5 years to kids.
Yeah.
The small kids starting at the age of 4.
Wonderful.
At the age of 4,
Yeah.
I started teaching, and now I have kids. From past 5 years, I'm teaching at my home.
Exactly.
Not as Partha Sarkarji very well said, I myself have to educate myself. And I'm educating, and I'm having much peaceful life now than before. So that's the service God has given me to do that service. That's what I'm doing, Swamiji.
Very, very wonderful. Though you feel that you didn't get a chance to teach your own children,
Yes.
you are teaching other kids. That itself will one day force your children to open their eyes, and that's one way of enlightening our own children. When we do something noble for others, they will learn from us. But still, this should be transmitted to young kids who are still in the formative years.
That's where my Swamiji, sorry, I'm not taking much time, but I feel so sad that my children are not having the knowledge. I'm not asking my knowledge, but at least some sanskar of this Indian. At least before I go into my, the deathbed, I want at least to see my children to have this knowledge. I just want your blessings, Swamiji.
Oh yes, you pray to God, everything will be okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Panjil, there is a question by Maruka.
Yes, I have unmuted her. Maruka ji, please go ahead.
Thank you so much
Most welcome.
for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Swami. I've been going to Vedanta in Lima, California for many, many years. I'm descendant of French-Mexican, and I am an early child development educator all my life in the United States. I have taught yoga to children, and now I am in the process of finishing books with the yoga philosophy. And your lineage of Vedanta has helped me a lot in develop this curriculum. And I found really interesting that many women here in this conversation right now are worried about that. And I am as well. Is that why I am into this path? Because I believe younger generations is the ones we need to focus right now most and deeply. And if any of you have any input, I will leave my email, and you can give me any books in your lineage that is helpful for me to develop more curriculum. I'm developing curriculum in Spanish and French and in English. I would love to speak Sanskrit, but I don't. But thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, thank you.
Next question, please.
Can I talk? This is Jyoti Sulochana.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, please go ahead, ma'am.
Swamiji, as you've heard now from many people, when we first came to United States in 1970s, our children were treated like black children. They were not this thing. We were treated like, this thing. But in the schools, they had a lot of discrimination. And that was one of the reasons we started Gandhi Camp, with the idea of giving them some kind of a base that we are not, underprivileged and anything. But most of us became educated and engineers. So over the years, we tried to give them some kind of a cultural thing. But once they go to college and everything, they don't keep up the practice. And Swamiji, I'm trying to be a chaplain. So when I talk to people, Hindus, when they are ill, even when they're sick in the hospital, and I ask them about practices, the first answer they say is, we are not religious. Don't bother to tell us anything about religion. This is the generation of people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. We went through a culture where we wanted to focus only on materialistic things and not think about our spirituality. And now that we are in our 60s and 70s, we want to gather it all and impart it to our children. So we are paying a price because we had to give up a lot of things to get ahead in this country, and we neglected our faith.
Well, I have sincere admiration for you because unlike many, you have spent at least some years to serve society, your community, imparting Gandhian values. So I know you're trying to be a chaplain. That's a great thing. So you don't feel fully satisfied. That's a different thing. But there are not many who have done even half of what you have done. So there is no reason for you to complain. Rather, you can be contented because you yourself are doing a good job right now. This can be an inspiration to many, and you can still spend your time and energy, divert your time and energy and your skills to impart these values to the growing generation.
Well, I talked to one patient today who has COVID. He's in the hospital.
Yeah.
So the chaplain there, refers me the patients who are regardless if they're Sikhs, Hindus, or even Muslims.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, so that's a great thing.
Thank you, Swami. I want your blessing.
Thank you.
I want your blessing.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Any more questions, please? Next question. Rupal, I can see you are there. Any questions?
No, I just wanted to thank Swamiji for joining and for really giving this wonderful talk. As you can see, we have such a fabulous attendance today. I had 76 people come, and that's all thanks to you, Swamiji. So we are extremely grateful to you for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. And it means a tremendous amount to all the seniors here on this call and all of us at ICC. So from the bottom of our heart, we want to thank you for coming and enlightening us with your wisdom.
Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you.
Mrs. Nalini Seth, please go ahead.
Yeah. Namaskar, Swamiji. I want to ask you about this next generation. They don't believe in the reality of life, and they want everything easy, available with money matter. And they don't want to do hard work, and that's why they don't want to understand about the culture, real culture. So how to go with this?
Yeah, frequently grown-up people, they may not have any inclination to pay attention to spiritual values. That's true. That is true everywhere, all over the world. That's the case. But there are some people who are interested. As I mentioned earlier, since you are interested in these great things, why don't you help people around, especially young kids, educate them, teach them some spiritual values. So seeing that will be an inspiration to your own children, really speaking. Very often it has happened when grown-up people, grown-up youngsters find their own parents doing great things, which they themselves didn't know early. They feel that there should be something really substantial about it. So I've seen in Vedanta societies also some old generation devotees continuously cooperate with us in many of our activities. That frequently inspires many other youngsters also. So you can spend whatever time, energy available to you for doing something good. Any positive action, any positive deed, any positive idea, even if you cannot actually implement it, still a positive idea flashing in the mind can generate spiritual energy. And when our mind generates spiritual energy, that reflects as what I mentioned earlier, Chitta Prasada, the natural feeling of blessedness of mind, inner contentment. Without this good thought or good ideas or good work, we will not be able to feel this inner contentment. You know why Jyoti Lula or many of these devotees, I don't remember all their names just now, many of them are trying to do a lot of good things for community. The reason is by doing that they derive a great spiritual contentment. Whatever little they are doing, that gives them enormous feeling of joy, inner joy. It is not a joy that a person experiences when he gets a lot of money. It goes much deeper. It actually improves your health. It improves the metabolism. It improves the problem of stress, problem of tension. So any attempt to do the smallest good thing for others will produce a spiritual asset, a spiritual benefit. That we can easily feel, we'll derive it, and it expresses itself as a feeling of inner blessedness. So thank you. Namaskar.
Swamiji, if we are advising, come once in a month with us, either in the temple or the institute where the spiritual knowledge are giving. So listen from the third party, reality of that life, and to get the success in your life. You come with us, they say, keep up to you.
Yeah.
We don't want to come. So how to take to that place, how to convince them?
How to come to the temple? Our temple here.
Yes,
Right.
No,
Right now it is closed because of this lockdown. Maybe I think within a few months our temple will be open. You are most welcome to come at any time. And Sanjeev ji and Dr. Sachin, they all know the location of our temple. 2323 Vedoga Street, San Francisco. We have two temples. You are most welcome after the lockdown is gone.
Swamiji, but her question is, she wants to know when she asks her children to come to the temple or come to the events like this, they refuse to go. So, any ideas on how to...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, at some point, I will be happy to meet all of them on some occasion after the lockdown is over. When they hear some ideas, they change their views, frequently it happens. When they listen to some ideas directly, they change their views. You need not be disappointed by that. That's a natural trend we find these days. Om Asadoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrudangamaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Om Peace, Peace, Peace.